Hello students, how are you people? Hope you're all doing good. Once again, welcome back to our biology class. Myself, Dr. Raghavendra here. In the earlier class, we were discussing about loss of species, mainly how this biodiversity is lost. Yes, biodiversity is lost due to the over exploitation or more greediness of the human. Okay, so the biodiversity is quite capable of recovering or repairing on its own, but too much of interference of the human causes lots of problems and definitely permanent loss of the species due to the activity or interference of the human in the nature. So we studied already about the species loss, how actually species lost. The species are lost because mainly, as we have discussed, from the last 500 years, more than 784 number of species have been lost. So this is due to the over exploitation by the human only. And then we have already discussed about the loss of species. Yes, there are number of other reasons also. So number of species under the threat because of the ecological imbalance due to the over exploitation of the resources, over exploitation of the nature, and too much heavy pollution will never encourage the survival of these sensitive species. So let us understand the rate of species extinction, on which rate the species are getting extinct. So when we say that the rate of species extinction increased from 100 to 1000 times, 1000 times when compared with the times of human pre-existence and existence, compared with the time of human pre-existence and existence, means before the human, definitely that time also species used to disappear, maybe only 100, but now 1000 times the rate of species extinction has been increased with the presence of the human. So it clearly gives us that it's all the human activities, that is mainly human interference in the nature, that is causing the highest rate of species extinction only after the appearance of the human. Well, ecologists warned about all this. Ecologists warned as such, if the same rate of species extinction continues within 100 years, there will be no life on the earth. There will be no life on earth. This is the status. So there should be some control over the excess, over exploitation of the nature. So there should be a control over the interference of the human, so that one can preserve, one can save, one can conserve these valuable and important species. Well, so this is what we have studied, the rate of species extinction. Yes, we already studied that from the past 20 years, most importantly the 27 species of animals have been disappeared. If we take account of from the last 500 years, 784 species have been disappeared from the nature. Well, so this is what we talk about, the rate of species extinction. When we say that decline in the plant species. So, decline in plant species because they make the huge amount of biomass. They make the forest that is the home for these wild animals. So, decline in the plant species, increase in the variations. Increase in variations. So unwanted variations or the damaging mutations, we can say damaging mutations. Mutations also the cause of species extinction. And other than that, loss of resistance. Yes, we know that the loss of resistance or resilience in the plant as well as the animal species. So what happens? They cannot tolerate the drought, they cannot tolerate, mainly we can say that the lack of the food, they can't tolerate the number of the natural calamities, they may not overcome with again high rate of reproduction. With all this, what happens? There is a problem arises, and that is the problem what we talk about the species extinction. So thus the loss of resistance. Now other than that, the habitat fragmentation also one of the great reason. So mainly loss of resistance to the drought, diseases, also one of the reason for species extinction. Other than that, habitat fragmentation. So when we talk about habitat fragmentation or loss of habitat, we can say loss of habitat, also one of the reason. So to give one instance or example, Amazon forest cut down, the trees are cut down to make crop fields, then grazing land for the beef cattle. So we are adding too much of mainly the methane gas to the nature by breeding or overbreeding these cattle also. So that's why Amazon forest, which is known to be as the lungs of the globe, right? So more number of trees are cut down there mainly to develop the mainly grazing land and crop fields. What they are growing? Yes, we can say that worldwide mainly the habitat fragmentation has caused mainly the forests, mainly the tropical forests. We can say that tropical forest have reduced 14% to 6% only because of the over exploitation and cutting up of the trees. And other than that, mainly why the trees are cut down? Yes, what they are doing to grow the mainly the palm as well as to grow the soya. Yes, they are cutting the trees to make the grassland for their cattle or the crop fields. So they are mainly to grow soya, okay, and the palm oil trees. So because of this, yes, encroaching the forest and cutting the trees, especially best example is Amazon forest cut down every year after year, and tropical forests have been reduced from 14% to 6% of the land surface. This is the scenario what we say, the reason for the loss of species. And then over exploitation also, yes, we need to know what is this over exploitation. When we keep on hunting a particular species for the sake of its flesh, for the sake of its eggs, Okay, that is called as over-exploitation. Well, let us understand that also. I hope the point is very clear here. The rate of species extinction has increased from 100 times to 1000 times. Why it is happening? Because the greediness of the human. So before the appearance of the human, it was only 100 times. When after the appearance of the human, it has gone to 1000 times more. The speed or the rate of extinction of the species increased 1000 times, and then so with this rate species keep on becoming extinct. Within 100 years there will be no more life on this earth. What the ecologists warned about this. And then decline in the plant species, there is no more variation, no more production of the biomass. So no more food for these animals, the wild animals. Increase in the variations, mainly the damaging mutations, we can say that will never favor the overcoming or recovering of the facts or the defects. Loss of resistance, the animals or the plant species will lose their ability to overcome or self-repair, so they may die in the drought condition or diseased condition. A number of other natural calamities and even man-made threats also will be there, the loss of resistance. And then the habitat fragmentation or cutting up of the trees, mainly the tropical forests have been reduced from 14% to 6%. Amazon forest trees are keep on cutting down because to make the crop fields and to make the grazing grounds for their beef cattle, to grow the soya and palm plants. So this is all what we say, mainly the reasons, well-known reasons for the habitat loss. Now let us understand mainly the other reasons such as over-exploitation and invasion by the alien species, then co-extinction also we will discuss. So what is that now? When we say there is over-exploitation, yes, let us understand. There are number of examples which clearly gives us, there are the examples which has happened and recorded in the history. Yes, what actually the man made to this nature by keep on killing these different valuable kind of species, so and remove them totally from the nature. So what we say, the over exploitation, exploitation, yes, for the sake of food, or we can say flesh. Okay, so overkilling of stellar sea cows, okay, removed in Russia, it happened. This is an example. Then even overhunting the passenger pigeons for eggs and the flesh, and it becomes extinct from the USA, in America, United States of America. Yes, so this is what we say over exploitation. Then alien species invasion also can be a threat for the number of indigenous species, and that can cause the disappearance of those indigenous species and they become extinct. A few examples let me tell you. Then invasion by alien species, invasion by alien species. Alien species means they did not come from other galaxy, don't confuse. Alien species means it was not existing there, human introduced them, or in one or other way they have come to in that particular habitat and over dominated on other existing species and replaced those the weaker one. So invasion by alien species or foreign species. Example as such, introducing the Nile perch Nile perch fish in the Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria of Africa. Okay, the Nile perch, when they introduced in the Lake Victoria of Africa, it has caused extinction of 200 species of cichlid fishes. 200 species of cichlid fishes become extinct because this Nile perch dominated over them and has eaten all their resources, and they are unable to compete with the Nile perch and they become extinct. This is one example. Other than that, mainly introduction of goats in Galapagos Islands. Okay, goats when introduced in the Galapagos Islands, Abingdon tortoises become extinct. Abingdon tortoises become extinct. Okay. Other than that, one more example is there. What is that? Mainly the weeds such as weeds like carrot grass, or we call it as Parthenium, then water hyacinth, become threat for the crops and indigenous plants. Yes, so carrot grass as well as water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is also called as the terror of Bay of Bengal. So it is also known as water hyacinth, the terror of Bay of Bengal. Okay, why? Because its threat is so high to the indigenous aquatic plants. So it entirely covers the water surface. Even the fishes inside the water will be unable to get the sufficient amount of oxygen. Water hyacinth, Eichhornia, Pistia, many more are there. They will cause mainly the threat to the existing species. There is one more species called as, what it is called as mainly, Clarius gary epinus. So it is also known as African catfish. Became threat for existing indigenous catfishes. These are what we say mainly the invasion by the or introduction of the alien species or the species which was not existing previously in that particular habitat. That once it is introduced, it dominates over the other existing species and causes the threat for their survival, or it may cause the extinction of those species. So here Nile perch, when it is introduced into Lake Victoria of the West Africa, yes, it has caused 200 species of cichlid fishes to become extinct. And then the goats when introduced into the Galapagos Islands, where the Darwin studied the evolution and adaptive radiations in the finch birds. So where mainly the goats were not there earlier, when the human keep on visiting that islands, then they took the goats along with them. Yes, they introduced. Goats have eaten all the grass, which is the food for the even Abingdon tortoises, but tortoises cannot compete with these goats and they become extinct without the food. Weeds like the carrot grass, we call the Parthenium, when it is existing or it came into the agriculture field, it will dominate over other and compete with the major crop for the sake of space and food and water. Water hyacinth, we call the Eichhornia, as well as there is one more Pistia. The terror of Bay of Bengal, when it is there in the water, the aquatic plants like lotus also get suppressed, and even it covers the entire surface, no more oxygen, no more aeration, so dissolved oxygen level will go down and the fishes and other aquatic organisms will die. Then Clarius gariepinus, the African catfish, when it is introduced, yes, they become the major threat for the indigenous or existing or local catfishes. So these are the reasons for what we can say mainly the alien species. One more important thing is we need to know what is that. So co-extinction, what is this co-extinction? Let us understand. So there are the species which are coexisting. So the obligatory to eat one another. So co-extinction. Extinction of one species lead to extinction of other. So the species, the two species are associated, or we can say obligatory. Okay, obligatory dependency, obligatory or dependency on another. So removal of one species causes extinction of the dependent species. Example, the host and parasite, as well as symbiotic or mutually associated species. So we can say that co-extinction means the removal of one species causes the death of another species also. We call it as mainly the symbiotically they may be associated, or one is the host, another one is the parasite. Under such situation, if you remove the host, parasite automatically will die. If symbiotically or mutually related species and you are killing one species, the other dependent or both will be affected and both will be become extinct from the nature. This is what we can say co-extinction. Well, so thus we are done with the discussion with mainly the loss of biodiversity as such entirely. So further we need to discuss about the conservation of biodiversity. Let us go ahead with the next concept, conservation of biodiversity also we will discuss now. So what are the different methods of conservation of biodiversity as such? There are number of important methods. Yes, we need to understand and discuss those important methods of conservation of biodiversity. So when we talk about conservation, yes, the nature has variety of species. We are not giving any money to these species, but still we are utilizing them in a number of ways, and we are, yes, should be thankful to them. Let us understand conservation of biodiversity. There are the ways or the methods such as narrow utilitarian method. Number 2, broad utilitarian method. Number 3, narrow utilitarian, broad utilitarian, ethical or moral values we need to give to these species. Number 4, in situ conservation. Number 5, ex situ conservation. Number 6, Earth Summit is conducted for the conservation of nature. So these are the different ways or methods of mainly conservation of the nature. When we talk about narrow utilitarian methods, what are these? So when we say narrow utilitarian, okay, means we need to utilize the resources in a limited way. So limited usage of resources. How we are restricting ourselves? Yes, let us understand. Mainly for the sake of food, for the sake of wood, okay, then mainly for the sake of fibers, then for the sake of mainly lubricants, for the sake of tannins, okay, for the sake of medicine, we are depending on the plants one or other way. For the sake of what we can say that mainly resins, for the sake of mainly the perfume and the dyes. So these are the number of a few important uses of the biodiversity as such. Food means we grow the crops, we are depending on the mainly the plants for the vegetables, and then yes, mainly the crops, vegetables, as well as what we can say that mainly the fruits and cereals and pulses that become the major component of the food for us. So thus availability of the food by preferring certain plants and growing them properly, and then we need to limit ourselves a particular geographic area. Don't keep on cutting the plants and making them the crop fields. So thus it may be for the sake of crops, vegetables, fruits or cereals and pulses, all that is mainly the food resource only. And then you need to grow the trees for the sake of wood, but don't keep on cutting the trees which are there in the wild condition. What are the wood we are using? Such as neem, sal, teak and sesame wood we say. So these are more durable wood as such. Then fibers, yes, we are obtaining the fibers from the cotton, okay, from the jute, from the hemp. Jute or hemp is the same, okay, even eucalyptus, okay. So these are what we can say the type of fibers can be obtained from these variety of plants. Lubricants, okay, the gum we can say. Then tannins or varnish, okay, or the polish. Then medicine. So we can say that 25% of medicines obtained from 25,000 species of plants, okay. And then resins, yes, mainly it may be the resins or the sticky substances we can say that, okay. Then the resins can be like gum only. Lubricants can be the oils. Then perfumes from the sandalwood, as well as the flowers, and then the dyes or the colors. Various plants, they have their different or peculiar kind of colors. These are all the narrow utilitarian methods. We need to restrict ourselves for the narrow utility, thus we can conserve the biodiversity. Yes. In the next class, we will be discussing other concepts also. Till then, take care, study well. Thank you very much.